Okay, so we're gonna get started on our second panel today. So University of Toronto specific questions. So for those of you guys who are just joining now, I want to thank you guys for joining. So our first half, if you stayed for the first half, we discussed academics. So we're moving on to UofT. And just to briefly go over LEAD Canada, we're a non-governmental organization and we're hosting webinars every week for the next couple weeks. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us. And yeah, let's get started. So I think we're gonna introduce our panelists first. So I think if we could start with Anjali, you can go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Anjali. I am a incoming third year student at UofT St. George. I'm doing a major in criminology and a minor in sociology and political science. I guess you guys can see my extracurriculars and like interests and passions. But yeah, I recently joined as a UofT panelist just so I could like tell you guys what my experience was like at UofT and why I think it's so great, and just to like answer any questions or debunk any misconceptions you may have entering UofT. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Angie. Okay, so for Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm a second year at UofT. I do research at the Faculty of Social Work, but I'm at the Scarborough campus. And then I also do photography on the side.
That's super interesting. Thank you. Hayden?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is kind of funky, so if I turn on my camera, I think everything will crash. Hey everyone, great to be here. I'm going to my third year at Rotman Commerce. I'm pretty interested in consulting, so if anyone had any questions there. This summer I'm interning at TD in data strategy, so it's a bit of an area that I've been exploring for the past year. I'm also co-founder of a few charities, really passionate about volunteering and giving back. So if anyone had any questions about, starting stuff and getting involved, I'd be happy to talk about that too.
Great, thank you. And I think we missed someone.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I missed you. I think I clicked on the slide twice. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarojini. I am a third year student at the University of Toronto, Mississauga campus, where I am doing a double major in biology for health sciences and psychology. Over there, I am the vice president of events for the STEM Fellowship Committee, and as well as outside of university, I am a swim/emergency first aid instructor for the city of Brampton.
Great.
And yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. Okay, so before we just get started into the questions, just to quickly break down, I didn't mention this before, but we're gonna go over some questions that you guys asked during the application registration process. And then at the end, we'll have more of an open Q&A. So you guys can drop down your questions in the open chat throughout, and we'll try to answer them at the end. Okay, so for the first question for campuses, I think a lot of people are really interested in knowing how is campus life, culture, environment at UofT, especially, being such a big school in downtown Toronto, or actually not one campus in downtown Toronto. So yeah, I think maybe we'll start with Anjali.
Yep. So I go to the St. George campus and I've been here for 2 years. I think my experience basically says that in the beginning it can definitely be very overwhelming. I live in Markham, so it's a relatively smaller community. So going downtown, everything is a lot it's really fast paced, and it does take a little getting used to, especially if you're not used to the speed of downtown. I do think that you learn a newfounded independence going to the St. George campus, and I commute as well. So just like throwing all of that in and really just being on your own and exploring downtown on your own, it's a big change. I guess for campus life and like culture and environment, I think it's definitely what you make of it. And I am a strong believer that there is something for everyone at UofT. And I think that it just depends on how you put yourself out there and what efforts you make to find your group and what efforts you make to join extracurriculars, because I feel that whatever you put into the school is what you'll get out. But in just terms of like, I guess how U of T is and what the St. George campus is like, you have to really prepare for a lot of independence and a lot of fast moving energy, because everyone's just kind of like on their own. And it's something that a lot of people may not be used to.
Yeah, for sure. Those are really good points. Any of the other panelists would like to share? Maybe Hayden can share a little bit.
Yeah. So in my first year, I stayed at home too. So I commuted from Richmond Hill. Took the Go bus. It's actually pretty like comes pretty frequently, probably like one every hour. So I took the Go bus down. It was about an hour. Honestly, it's like not as bad as you think, but a misconception in first year was that I could actually do work on the bus. I would only ever do it if I had something to do in the next hour or in the very immediate short term. Otherwise, you can take time to sleep, listen to music, listen to podcasts. But in the second year, I decided to move downtown. Well, actually, the transition to second year in the summer, I was working downtown. So I decided to rent a place with a friend. And honestly, it was just like not as scary as I thought, because I had to just cook for myself, which wasn't too bad. Almost burnt down my place once, but essentially, like I think it was pretty good experience. And then in fully second year, when I was actually studying, it was more of getting adjusted, as she mentioned, to the fast pace of downtown, and just making sure that you like get to your classes on time, because I usually procrastinate in getting ready, but if you're commuting, it's usually you're the earliest one there because of your train or bus schedule.
Yeah, for sure. So Vanessa, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so for UTSC, it's like obviously much smaller, and same with UTM, obviously. So the social life is, I guess, less because there's not as many students. I would say that the ratio to like students to like how many buildings they are, it's around the same. Like when you're walking out of lectures or like halls or whatever, there's still like a lot of students in the hallways like studying, etc. So you still feel like, oh, there's like a ton of people here. Yeah, and there's still places and chances that you can meet like your group and friends and people you like. So it's not necessarily that, oh, it's impossible to meet new people or find people that like vibe with you or work with you. It's just like the amount of students at UTSC is like less.
For sure, yeah. I sometimes feel like bigger schools, like with like the St. George campus, or just like schools with just bigger populations, even though there's more people, it can actually be kind of more daunting because there's just so many people. It's harder sometimes to find like a friend group. So maybe like a smaller campus might be something that you would actually prefer. Yeah. So, and Sarojini, if you want to go next.
Sure. So at UTM, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the deer on campus. So they are very shy, so they would not really show up during school time and really high peak hours. But if you are on campus at nighttime or like during the early mornings, you will tend to see deer there, and it's pretty cool. But they do run away once they notice you staring at them from a corner. But as for traffic within the campus, I'd say it's pretty moderate. Like you won't necessarily bump into people or like body slam into each other, but it is still kind of crowded, and you do want to like, so you at UTM you have something called UTM time, which is like if your class starts at 3, you have 10 minutes to reach class. So with the distance between buildings, you should be able to reach your lecture on time. I just want to warn you guys about the Davis building, because that building is one of the older ones, and moving through that building to other buildings is kind of chaotic. So definitely if you have a class in Davis, or if you got to leave Davis, you may want to make up some time for that and just skedaddle when there's some room.
Those are good tips. For those of you, I'm guessing, who are going into U of T next year or thinking of it, keep those in mind. So also I noticed you guys talked a lot about transportation. So there will be a whole question at the end about that. So don't worry if you have more questions. Okay, so second part on courses. So I think a lot of people were interested in knowing what specific bird courses, especially for first years, and any like professors, good or bad, anything to watch out for. So Angelique, do you want to start?
Yeah. So bird courses, I'm in social sciences. So for me, I had to take a breath 5. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is, but I had to satisfy my 5th breath requirement. So I took astronomy 201, but I know a lot of people who have taken astronomy 101. And basically there are some courses on the St. George campus that are specifically designed for students to take to satisfy their breath requirements. And the 2 astronomy courses I've mentioned are some of the ones that are specifically designed to be more simpler. So students can, in different fields, can satisfy their breath requirements without taking a hit on their GPA. So those 2, and then SOCH 100, 150. I took fields have taken it to satisfy their Christian Karen, but I had him. I personally loved him. Super easy marker, very easy going, gives you extensions if you need it. But I think overall, SOCH 100, 150 is great for people who aren't in the social sciences field, just so they can like learn a little bit more about sociology, and it's also super easy. So I think if you need your 5th breath requirement, then astronomy, and if you need like a social sciences, I think this is breath number 2. If you need to satisfy that, then like SOCH 100, 150. I hope that helps.
Sorry, for those of you who don't know what breath, would you mind kind of just going over briefly, just maybe if they don't know what that is?
Sure. I'm sure like my fellow panelists can add to it because I might like leave out some stuff. But basically what U of T has is they want us to have like a wide base. Anyone can jump in, by the way, because I'm not sure if I'll do a good job at explaining this. But you need like a wide base of courses. So like, let's say like, for example, I'm in the criminology program, but they would want, so it's a social sciences, but they would want you to also take a course in like another kind of not program, like another field, I guess, just so you kind of like expand your horizons type of thing. So they have 5 breath requirements, and you usually fulfill 2 or 3 within your own program. And then there's a couple of other ones that you have to fulfill. So I think, and each of the 5 breath requirements, each of them is like a separate category. So breath number 5 is does anyone know? I think it's like physical something.
Yeah, it's like physical environmental.
Okay.
Yeah, but the way I like to, I guess, explain breath requirements is it's like the group 1, 2, and 3 that you take in high school, where it's like a specific like general like field or subject, so like science or like business or whatever, and then you have to like take at least 1 course to like fill that breath requirement.
Okay, yeah. Thank you guys. While we're on Vanessa, do you want to talk about some specific bird courses or anything else?
Yeah. So I guess like the ones listed here are like ones that I took in my first year. In general, I think that there's a lot of, I guess, repetition in things like Facebook groups of people asking, oh, like what are some bird courses to take? And sometimes there are like mixed opinions. Just because someone says that, oh, it's a bird course for them, that doesn't mean it's going to be a bird course for you. So basically, so the first one is cultural anthropology. And it's like, because I'm in psychology already, it's like the social sciences and something more theoretical is more interesting to me compared to something like planet Earth or like math or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the other courses I picked were sociology, and I really like that one because it's a full year course, so it's like both fall and winter. And you have like tons of opportunities to make up your mark if you get like a 70 or like 50 or like below what you want basically for a specific assignment. And I think for like generally all three campuses, I think like business, like the intro to business courses is like one of the easiest or like most like mentioned about. In terms of professors, I'm biased because I just like psychology professors at UTSC. But Steve Jordan's is really popular. He's, for some reason, he gets all these like news gigs at like CP24 or something and like TED Talks. But yeah, you can find him online. And then Kyle Danielson, he's known for like the way he speaks and his butt too, but it's fine. And then Kathy Little is the sociology professor, and she's really nice. She's really lenient with deadlines. And then Souza is one of the upper year psych professors, and he's really good too at explaining things, because I feel like usually professors will either read off slides or just give you like blatant definitions without explaining it or giving proper examples. And Souza has like those examples or pictures to guide you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. If you guys are going into, going to UTS next year, maybe you guys can take a note of these professors. It's pretty vital information, I think, finding good professors. Maybe briefly, Sarojini, do you want to go over some of the board courses before we move on? That's okay?
Yeah, for sure. So about the breadth requirements at UTM, I don't think we call them that. We know them as electives. So basically, you have to fulfill 3 types of categories in order to graduate, despite what type of program you do. So you gotta fulfill 1 credit in humanities, 1 in social sciences, and another in sciences. So basically, half a credit is a semester's worth course, and then 1 credit is 2 semesters worth of a course, or if there's any type of, if something else says otherwise. But as for the courses that I listed down here, UTM 1 are specific courses meant for first years only. So even if you're in second year, you can only take these courses if you're in your first year. And these are common ways that students fulfill their requirements of the electives. I know this year there's not going to be one in sciences, so you may have to do a science credit for that. But as for social sciences or humanities, you could totally take one of these. I didn't personally take one because I actually had no idea they existed until my friends told me. So I was like, oh, well, that's a bummer. But I'd recommend you guys check them out if you're interested. I'm sure they have a list of those on the UTM website if you guys have time to check. As for very popular bird courses at UTM, Religion 101 with Ken Derry is a very, like, I personally love that course so much because he, like, at the beginning of lectures, he'd, like, play songs, and then, like, he'd analyze a certain religious theory with the song, and it'd be fantastic. I'd be dancing in that class and making myself look very unique. As for Soc 100, that's another bird course. In my opinion, I was not interested in the course. So for me, it was not really a bird because I had to put like a lot of effort into that course. And most people assume that when you take a bird course, you'll get an easy 80 or 90. But what you got to realize is that with these courses, you should really choose a course that you're fond of. So despite it being like not a bird course, if you're really interested, you could totally get a high mark in it. Because I feel like that's what drives you to do well in those type of courses. I mean, that's what I did for Anthropology 101. No one really considers that a bird course because of the amount of memorization. But I really liked the course. We talked a lot about primates, monkeys, Neanderthals, cool stuff. So yeah, I'd really recommend that course if you are really into bio-heavy stuff. Maybe not recommended if you're into the social or lighter stuff, or not lighter stuff, but like if you're interested in something else. Fiona Rawls, she's a very popular professor. People love the way she teaches. She teaches like you're in elementary. She goes slow and easy. Really good first-year biology teacher. Judith Poe, she has a reputation of being one of the longer-standing professors. So yeah, we make like jokes saying that she existed before the dinosaurs, which is like kind of funny. But yeah, very sweet lady. Love her. And yeah, that's all I'll say about bird courses at UTM.
Thank you so much. If you guys want to take bird courses, you have the list right here. Hayden, I think we're going to go on just for time constraint, if that's okay, or unless you wanted to add anything else for this topic.
Yeah, I think Angeli covered AST 201, 101, but I also just recommend to make sure to check out the seminar courses. So basically those are exclusively for first years. And the great thing is there won't be exams for seminar courses. So it's mainly like assignments and then like your essays throughout the course. So those ones are usually like the hidden gems of your bird courses.
Great, thank you. So yeah, we got a lot of good information on the seminar courses and also taking courses you're actually interested in. So thank you. Okay, let's go to the next slide if it will let me. Okay, so next question on e-season clubs. So I think we can all agree that involvement in extracurriculars is sometimes some of the most interesting parts of school. So I think everyone is curious to know your experience and involvement in clubs, EC, sports, especially during your first two years. So like maybe your first year, and how did that go? So maybe we can start with Hayden this time, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, echoing what you mentioned. Definitely getting involved is super important. In university, I'm sure you guys recognize that in high school, but especially at the university level, being able to not only make connections with alumni who go off into the workforce and will definitely become either a good reference for you, someone who can guide you, or oftentimes they also participate in recruiting as well. So you never know, they could be part of the recruitment process for your interview. The other thing is obviously building up your experiences. So in my first year as part of the first 2 years, I was part of the Rotman Commerce Consulting Association, and also my second year as part of the case competition team. So both of those experiences really helped me to learn more about my career interests, where I wanted to take my involvement, and that sort of helped me narrow down on my focus in consulting, because prior to this I really didn't know what consulting was, and no one is really expected to. When you get into first year, you don't have to know about finance or like valuation models, M&A and stuff, like, so don't worry about knowing the technical things. And the same applies when you get your first job or your first internship. Like, no, not many people really focus on what exactly you know, but rather like your ability to solve problems, your ability to demonstrate that you want to learn. So taking that initiative. So clubs have really helped to hone some of those important skills, as well as give me access to those resources. So outside of Rotman, interesting story there, because many like Rotman students are known to sort of be siloed, and like we kind of like trap ourselves in our own bubble. I see other people laughing because we get made fun of. But anyways, it's important to get involved outside of your program, just because sometimes you get too caught up in things, you like lose sight of other things where you may have a particular interest in. So I also with UNICEF, so do a lot of fundraising work there. This year I'm part of their executive team as vice president. Outside of campus, involvement is important too. So working on some other charities and startups, but also again to the point, building on these experiences to leverage your own network and being able to then land your internships.
Yeah, those are really good points on, like being able to participate outside of school activities. You can definitely build your network, like Hayden said, which is really important. And you'll get to learn more of the importance later in university, and also just finding your passions for what you want to do maybe later on. Maybe Vanessa, if you want to build on to this topic.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the most important things is to be in like um groups and clubs that are interesting to you, but also take into consideration that you want to be a part of clubs um, that are similar to like what you're doing in university, so in school, because that's something that you can put on your resume, for example. So if you're a part of Model UN, because I was a part of it, that's not really like related to my psychology degree, right? And I was doing photography for it. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really go on my resume. It just goes on my CCR, which is like the co-curricular record, I think. But basically, it's just like a list of your involvement on campus. And this is like relevant for things like work study, or for if you're like contacting professors.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, finding some ECs that could help you in the future with career and all that. So maybe Sarajini, if you want to build on a little bit more.
Sure. So for me, honestly, during first year, I was so like, because I'm like one of the first in my family to attend a uni, I was so like new to the whole experience. So I really did not join any clubs during first year. I was more like serious about like how to time manage properly, how to catch up with classes because I was really behind in them, and just overall get the grasp of uni. So then during my second year, instead of really focusing on like clubs within school and or like extracurriculars within school, I decided to start my job at the city of Brampton as a swim instructor. I don't know. I just wanted to like make some money on the side because I didn't really have a lot of money at that time. So I was like, you know what, to pay for the books and all that, let's just make some money and pay for it. But then afterwards did I realize how important it is to join such clubs in uni, because first you get to meet faculty members or students involved that have connections to maybe upper year classmen that are in um, like programs that you want to be in, so like master's degrees and stuff. Because I know one of my friends is like vice president of this robotics team that they're not really holding at my school but somewhere else, and like she has a connection to someone upper year. So then afterwards I was like, you know what, I gotta join a club or something, I gotta make these connections now. So afterwards, that's when I like signed myself up to be vice president of events for the STEM fellowship, which was a rather new committee that blew up in our uni. Like it started to get a lot of popularity, and I wasn't that hopeful that I would get selected because I don't know. Like, I don't know if I made myself stand out in the university, but I guess I kind of did because during Halloween, I'd dress up and have face paint all over my face. And, like, I don't know, I was the cutest thing. But I guess that kind of helped me because I know some people that selected me were like, oh, you're the girl who dressed up as like a ghoul that one year. And I was like, oh, you remember. Nice. But yeah, I got selected, and now I'm just like working my way with the committee, coming up with new things. And we've actually contacted some upper year faculty, staff, professors, and like we're coming up with researching presentations because that's what my group is circulated around, trying to spread research opportunities and how to make literature and all that. So yeah, I really feel like joining clubs is essential in uni, especially if you want to get that networking and upper year recognition. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for sharing. And maybe if our last panel, if you want to go over very briefly anything else you want to add about maybe your own experiences?
Yeah, sorry. Oh yeah. Um, I think Hayden pretty much covered a lot of like the same. I started off my extracurricular experience by joining the student council within my college, because going into first year, I didn't really know where to go, where to look. And I was always really into student council, so I just started off there. But definitely, like, kind of to speak upon what Hayden said, like, join clubs that you're interested in, but also, like, to broaden your horizon, join clubs that you may feel like are different, that can just, like, where you'll learn more things or where you'll just meet more people, because oftentimes you join clubs which you're really familiar with, or you already have people who are involved in that, so you're like, you may as well join it. But a lot of I guess my better experiences have come from, like, taking that leap of faith and taking that risk and joining clubs where I'm not too familiar with the idea, or where I'm not too familiar with the people involved, so that way you can really meet different people, you can really learn different things. One little, I guess, not suggestion, like, something that I personally really loved is, I love getting involved with extracurriculars, but, like, as Sarojini mentioned, I also really needed money and I really needed part-time jobs. So what I decided to do was I tried to find, like, jobs on campus which kind of, like, acted like extracurriculars in a way, but I could also obviously make the money that I needed. So I got, like, involved in a couple of extracurriculars just as they were, and I also tried to find, like, not clubs, sorry, part-time jobs on campus where I could meet new people, still get the same experience, but also kind of build, make some money. So for that, I would definitely recommend that if you are trying to juggle between, like, extracurriculars and a part-time job. I think someone asked a question, but what you can try to do is, if you're still looking for, like, a community or something, you could try to get involved with work or jobs on campus, so that way you also meet people and students on the same campus as you, but you also make the money, and you can still get involved in extracurriculars, and then it's a lot more convenient because you're already on campus. So that's just something, like, for example, a campus tour guide or campus ambassador, like, those are a couple of suggestions if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's a lot of great information. Yeah, so for sure, I think, yeah, exploring your interests, even if you don't really know what you're interested in, but you're like, I kind of like this industry. Yeah, like everyone mentioned, just go ahead, join a club, and you'll see maybe what you're interested in. Yeah, thank you guys. So we're gonna move on to the next question on residence. So I think people are interested in knowing what your residence experience is like, and also the college system, because I think that also can be kind of confusing, the different colleges. So this time let's start with Sarojini. Sorry, am I pronouncing your name wrong? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no,
It's not that. Correct me. Just correct me. Okay.
You're good. So for me, I did not live on residence. I commute. So I don't really have a lot to say about residential experience at UTM. I had a lot of friends that lived there. A very popular place is called Arundel Hall, I believe. Yeah, it's like these apartments where 6 people live in this one suite, and you guys share one room between 2 people, and there's, like, 2 bathrooms. And, like, honestly, if you get, like, matched up with good people, it can be a great experience from what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, no worries. If you didn't go, but yeah, thank you. There'll be a section on transportation where I'll definitely get back to you on that. Yes. Okay, Vanessa. Have you had a residence experience on campus?
No, but I've been in the residences. Yeah, like, my friends go there. I've heard, like, I guess, feedback from them or how it works. So, like, how the UTSC system works, at least, is you get to rank your preferred residences. So most people, or majority of people, if, like, budget is not a huge issue, they'll choose the apartments as their top list. And the apartments is where it's like a single bedroom, and you pretty much, like, live by yourself, I think, or you, like, live with a smaller group of people, compared to the townhouses, where it's more run down, or more like cottage like. And yeah, there's like up to like six to eight people, I think, can live in one. In terms of the meal plan system, from what I've heard, don't get the meal plan system. It's very limited, especially on the UTSC campus. And essentially, what what happens with the meal plan system is you pay like a limited amount. Like you pay like $1,000 or $2,000, and you can basically spend that money on any food that you want. And that's why it's called like a meal plan. But essentially, there's only like a limited like number of places that you can choose from for food. So for example, like Tim Hortons, Starbucks, and there's this like general marketplace. But the thing is that like the marketplace, like the food can be sort of crappy, like overpriced, that sort of thing, sort of like your basic high school or university cafeteria food. And then if you end up choosing like Tim Hortons or pizza or Booster Juice or Starbucks, it's like over time it can get really boring. Yeah, so I recommend you just stick with either cooking your own food, or you like buy from Tim Hortons or whatever, because if you don't spend the $2,000 or whatever, then you like basically lose that money. So you're paying extra for the food.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe Anjali, you can talk a little bit. I know you said you were on St. George campus. Maybe if you know a little bit about the college system on St. George, maybe you can go over that a little bit.
Sure. So essentially what the college system is the Faculty of Arts and Science is divided into 7 colleges, and those colleges are primarily for residents, but it's also so such a large population is kind of subdivided, and it's easier to kind of like call a place your home base, even if you commute, and it's easier to kind of make friends. Your frosh or your orientation is with your college. You spend a lot of time at your college, or at least like most people that I know do. And obviously if you're on residence, you live in that college and you eat in that college. But that's essentially what the college system is. And I think Vanessa already said, but you rank your preferences for which college you want to be a part of, and different colleges have different colleges primarily are for residents. From what I've heard, I've never lived in residence, but my friends have, and basically it's more important for residents. Otherwise, as a commuter, you're kind of just there and you spend time there, but it's not really something that makes or breaks like your entire university experience. But different colleges have different kind of residences. I'm not really sure too much about exactly the different kinds of residences, but like New College, for example, that's the college I'm a part of. They have 3 different residence buildings, and each building has kind of like a single room or a double room. And I know that some residences you have to buy a meal plan, versus there's another residence or college, Woodsworth. There you have the option of having your own kitchenette and that kind of stuff. So definitely look into, there's like a whole website. Definitely look into colleges if you're interested in living on residence, and if you're interested in meal plans, because that varies from college to college. But otherwise, it's not really the biggest deal which college you're a part of. It's other than for orientation and kind of like where, like the first place you're familiar with on campus. Aside from that, a lot of people I know spend their entire time at their college. A lot of people I know haven't gone to their college since frosh, and they've graduated.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I think Hayden can speak to it as well.
Yeah, I'm one of the people who don't go back to my college at all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like echoing what Anjali was mentioning. Yeah, basically the colleges are a formal classification of where you belong, and primarily it is for residences. But they do have also like support services for students who are commuters, and they also provide things like counseling for your like mental health or academic counseling. So, for example, if you need a note from like a counselor, maybe you have an extenuating circumstance, then you go to your college. So I did stay on residence for about like 2 weeks for orientation. So I guess I can speak a bit about that. I was at New College, so I honestly did not like my experience at all, because at New College, and you'll find this at some other residences, they have co-ed washrooms. So it's kind of interesting, and I think this is pretty common across some other universities too. But basically, yeah, it's like, it's kind of weird. And when you like after you finish showering, it's like, the shower, like the three showers are like connected. Like there's like the barriers, right? But they're all connected. So then there's like sometimes it overflows. So the water, like you kind of be sharing the water at the bottom with like someone else, which is really, really disgusting. Which is why I was kind of glad at one point that I was at New College for the whole year. So it was kind of uncomfortable. Like you'd be wearing your like sandals or your slippers, like rubber slippers into the shower, and then you would have like your little bin to hold your stuff. So I don't know. I just prefer like being able to just walk into my own shower, which is what you can get at some other residences like Woodsworth. So other than that, like definitely I think the community is something that's great on residences. So I guess for me, like a big thing is like a clean washroom, privacy. So yeah, if you value those things, then definitely like stick to somewhere where you have a good washroom. Yeah, it's kind of awkward. Oh, one more story. Yeah, I was walking in, like people are popping their pimples like everywhere. So yeah, so overall, yeah, just be mindful of that.
Yeah, that's really important. Good point to know. If you value more your privacy, or if you tolerate those things that Hayden just described, and you're willing, sake of community, I don't know. So yeah, make sure you do your research ahead of time. Okay, so the next point we're going to be talking about is transportation. So we kind of mentioned it earlier, but I know a lot of students at U of T are commuters because a lot of people live all around Toronto, GTA area. So I think if you guys could get some recommendations or just talk about how the transportation was. This time we'll start with Hayden again, if that's okay, because I just feel bad he's been speaking last. So we'll start with Hayden first this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Just like transportation in general, right?
Yeah. Anything you would like to talk about?
Yeah. So yeah, I covered a bit about my journey downtown before. Obviously had like a few times where I missed my train, like missed my bus. Wasn't a big deal because I just waited an hour. But overall, like I think definitely thinking back about my own experiences, transportation and commute is a bit tiring. So definitely be mindful of that, where like let's say like you're commuting for like an hour, but realistically, you're getting up earlier, you're coming back later, you're also like sort of more you feel more drained from that whole process, and you're also at class like much earlier, which is kind of good, I guess, because you can take that time to prepare for that class. But honestly, sometimes it just really creates more awkward gaps in your day. And I think one important thing is like, especially also when you're scheduling classes, to see if like, try to minimize those like 30-minute gaps or like 1 hour gaps in between, because that's where you sort of like lose out on some productivity time, because you're kind of like in that transition, and that kind of happens when you're commuting, right? So all those times do add up. So I think just overall being mindful of that. But no regrets in first year. It was like definitely nice to be able to not have to think about adjusting to living on my own. So I think that's a big thing there.
For sure, yeah. That's great. Maybe if we could get we'll get Anjali to talk briefly, because we are running a little bit short on time, and then Sarojini, you can talk afterwards a little bit. So we'll just go a bit briefly on those two. Yeah.
I also commuted, so similar to Hayden, I also commuted, but I commuted from Markham for the last couple of years. For me, I used the TTC because the GO train closest, like it just wasn't worth it in terms of time for me. But I used the TTC. If you are considering commuting, I would just say to keep in mind of rush hour, weather, TTC delays in general, especially during exam time. What I did was I just used the GO train at that time. It is a little bit more on the higher side, but like it's definitely worth it if you want to get to campus in a very timely fashion and you have deadlines to meet, then I would just use the GO train. But otherwise, TTC, there are a bunch of delays, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But if you do have like an exam or something, then I would suggest going with the more reliable source, like the GO services. if it makes sense for wherever you're living. Aside from that, I would just say I think Hayden covered pretty much all of it, but like commuting is a little rough because sometimes I felt that really pressured to use my time effectively, but it was so difficult because like you're so tired, and then sometimes like on during rush hour you have to stand, like it's really hard to actually make the best use of your time. So that just depends on how long your commute is, and I found that doing like more easier tasks on my commute, like making my to-do list or like writing my agenda, listening to podcasts, was a better use of my time rather than like doing hardcore readings. But if you can do that, that's good for you. But I think Hayden mentioned like you can also just like nap or kind of like take some downtime for yourself, which is really important. And sometimes you don't get that. But that's pretty much it. If you do have to commute, or if you do choose to commute, then like just keep in mind of like all the delays that do occur and how to plan your schedule. I guess not so much this year because of the online classes, but in general, just factoring in your commute time and like trying to avoid rush hour, or trying to like go early in the morning and maybe stay throughout the day because it's not worth to commute there just for like small things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Sarah Jeannie, if you
Oh,
want
sorry.
to talk briefly about for UTM, just very briefly about that.
Yes. All right. So for me, I was one of those lucky ones. I got my parents to drop me off every day and pick me up every day because I live quite not close, but like I live along Mississauga Road and the university is along Mississauga Road, so it worked out. And then during second year, I realized that there's a girl who lives a minute away from me, so then we ended up carpooling for second year, which worked out even better because we saved some gas. But for those that don't have the accessibility for those type of vehicles like a car, actually, yeah. So for people that can't take their car to campus, so what UTM offers, I don't know if like the other campuses offer this as well. There are U passes that students can use for Me Way or My Way Transit, the Mississauga Transit. However, you can't use them for the Brampton Transit. So if you live in the city of Brampton, you're gonna have to use your own Presto. But at UTM, there is a direct bus that will take you from UTM to Shoppers World. So that's around Steeles in here, Ontario, I believe. It'll take you to that terminal. And then from there, you could take buses to your house. So it's a direct bus. There's no stops in between. It's pretty handy. I took it before. It took me half an hour to get there. Pretty good. There are also shuttle buses. So if you live in Toronto or if you live in Oakville and you want to get to UTM, you could totally take advantage of those shuttle buses if they're convenient to you. All you need to do is have your T card, and I believe that's it. I believe you need to show your T card and prove that you're a UTM student or a UofT student, and then you can get on those buses and head to your classes. As for recommendations, honestly, whatever works out, works out. Like transit, sometimes it can get a little hard because it like peak hours, it gets trafficy. During the winter time, it can get pretty intense because like if you take the bus during the winter, it could take you hours until you arrive at your house. So you want to prepare for those, make sure you leave early, plan out your time, and yeah, just be wary.
Yeah, thank you. Is it okay if I move on to the next one, or Vanessa, did you want to add anything on really quick, or?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so last topic before we move on to the open Q&A. So just very briefly, if we could get maybe Hayden to talk about some of the resources that you can find for scholarships, bursaries, and awards. If Hayden is
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, great.
Yep, sure. Definitely like look around online, search scholarships. You'll definitely find a lot of different websites out there. They're popping up like crazy now. and you'll definitely, I think they'll definitely target you with ads, so don't have to worry about that. Definitely, I would focus on applying to those larger scholarships first. So, for example, Loran, Schulich Leaders for STEM, I think, and also the TD scholarships. So I can speak a bit about the TD scholarships if anyone's interested on the side. But definitely, like, applying to some of those smaller scholarships is good too, because they do add up. I know of a few that I could recommend as well. And when you do get on campus, you still have access to more scholarships there. So U of T does also provide some student aid. So last year I got a few thousand from U of T, and the new college like randomly gave me like $1,000 for like academic merit. Like, honestly, my GPA wasn't even that high, so I don't even know why they gave me that. But there are like more opportunities for scholarships available in university.
Mhm.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I moved on the slide. Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. We'll probably, hopefully during the open Q&A, maybe you can talk, we'll have a question about scholarships if anyone's interested in specific ones. But maybe since I skipped over Vanessa last time, if you want to add anything else on this topic, if you have anything you want to share.
Not anything specific. I think Hayden has more experience, especially with scholarships. Again, like, it's not the end of the world if you don't get a specific scholarship or award. I feel like in high school you're sort of pushed to apply to like all these other scholarships. And I remember in like senior year of high school, I had this list of like 10, 20 scholarships that I had to write essays for, and I was like, oh my god. And then at the end of the day, I just realized that sometimes it's like not about like the money, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, it's nice to have like a scholarship or an award and be recognized for the work you do, but it's not something to like cry over, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think like there's also other opportunities to make money on campus, things like work study, which is working on campus basically, or like part-time jobs. Like, scholarships is not the only way that you can pay for tuition and textbooks.
Yeah, that's great. Sarah Judy, I know you have a resource here, so maybe you want to share that with everyone.
Sure. So as a U of T student, I'm sure you guys might be aware of something called Acorn. Once you get your U Toronto ID and you create your password, you can access this, and this is where you would do most of your course enrollments, program selections, financial invoicing, and all sorts of stuff. Over there, they added a section called Award Explorer. And basically, it's like a direct way to see all the scholarships that are offered in your uni. So you can select either the St. George campus, Scarborough, Mississauga. There's also some colleges. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But you could totally check those out if you're interested. Do be aware, though, that some of the dates have expired on a couple of scholarships, but it hasn't been updated yet. So do be aware of that. As for grants, for UTM, there's a grant called the University of Toronto Mississauga grant. And basically, you create one application that gets scanned by multiple bursaries offered by the uni, except for maybe faculty-specific bursaries offered by faculty like the Accessibility Center or Biology Department and all that. But it scans through a couple of bursaries, and through your application, they'll give you a lump sum of money. Like for me, I think I got like 500, I think, from the grant, which I mean is better than nothing. Money's money.
Yeah, that's great. Does Angeli, do you have anything to add on this topic, or do you think it was pretty much covered?
I think they pretty much covered it all. I use Scholar Tree for a whole bunch of other scholarships. You guys might want to check that out, but they're not uni specific, it's external. You do have to write a bunch of essays and an application, but they do give like 500,000 out. So it's just like a website called Scholar Tree. and you search it, and then you kind of just filter it based off of like what year you're in and like program and stuff like that. And then you just get like a whole bunch, and then from there you can see which ones you want to apply to. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So Scholarshare, that's another resource. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to the open Q&A period. So if you guys have any questions, please put that into, oh, nope, that's not the right button. I don't know why. I said Q&A, so I was like, that sounds kind of correct. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to, if you guys have any questions in the Q&A, our panelists can help with that. If I can stop sharing real quick so I can see the chat. Okay. I'm sure there's a way to share my screen while looking at the chat, but for some reason it's not showing. So I'm just gonna find some of the questions and then maybe our panelists can answer them. Okay, so, all right, okay, so I see one person, Christina Chen, she asked, does Rotman clubs have a competitive application process? Oh, Hayden already replied, but maybe if people didn't see this question, maybe we can go just a little bit on. So I guess, Hayden, if you want to talk a little bit briefly, this will also be in the summary sheet, so it'll be good to talk about here. Yeah, about like maybe the club application processes.
Sure. So the question was if Rotman clubs are competitive. So at Rotman, we have first year interns. It's an unpaid position, but essentially it's more of like a mentorship and a position that leads up into more senior executive roles with the clubs. So at Rotman, we have about 26 or 27 different clubs. So ranging from accounting, finance, entrepreneurship, consulting, like you name it. We also have like cannabis club if anyone's interested. But basically like some are more competitive than others. So the ones I listed there were accounting, finance, and consulting. And that's just because more people are interested in those career areas. So in terms of tips, I would just definitely say like network. I think this applies more to business, but it does speak truths for other disciplines as well. Just to meet people, like they're honestly just like you, but a few years ahead or like 1 or 2 years ahead. So they're still looking out for people who are similar to them. So making sure that you can relate well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Okay, so another question we have is, what do you think is a competitive average to get into UofT? So I think maybe this is someone who's not incoming university student, obviously. So I guess maybe one of you guys can talk about, I guess, like the application process to get into UofT. And I know there's a lot of like conceptions of it being quite competitive. So yeah, if one of you guys want to answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, I can. So I think like it really varies. Like I got into UofT, I think with like high 80s. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, you need like 90s or whatever. And that's really not the case. I've seen people with like mid 70s, low 70s get into UofT. Like with post especially, what happens is you can get into like business, for example, and then you can switch to life science or whatever later. And that's sort of like this, like the hack that people use to get into the program they really want. You just need to make sure that you take the prerequisites for that.
Sounds good. Yeah. I think we're gonna wrap up with one last question. Maybe Anjali, if you could answer this. So this person asked, are there any tips for connecting with profs, TAs, and other students while starting first year online? So just networking, but it is online. So any tips for that?
I mean, online is definitely difficult. I don't have obviously a lot of experience with it either, but I would say that profs and TAs will still hold office hours. May it be on Zoom, they'll still be office hours. So I would still recommend and really push to attend those once in a while, and really email your profs and TAs with questions and any sort of clarification, even if it's like the dumbest question. Apparently there's no such thing as dumb questions. I've learned that the hard way, but you should really just, even if it's on Zoom, even if it's just through email, even setting up like a separate Zoom call with your prof or TA just to go over through some material during office hours. I think that's a step into making connections. It is definitely difficult, but you can still definitely do that. And for other students, there are a lot of Facebook groups that I've seen that have already started. Facebook groups for certain graduating years, like class of 2024 or 2025, whatever. You can join those, and they're also very course specific ones. So I think if you just go on Facebook and you search up, like if you're taking astronomy, you search up astronomy 201, you'll find like a Facebook group. Or if you're in like a class of 2024 Facebook group already, a lot of people will start posting like, hey, does anyone have a group chat made for astronomy 201? And then they'll start like being like, oh no, let's make one. And then that's a good way to, I guess, meet people in your classes, especially. Otherwise, go to Frosh, even if it's online, like attend the orientation events, even if they're online. That's a great way to at least meet some people. I think that's it. Yeah, it's definitely difficult, but you can still make the best of this opportunity and of this time, and still connect with students, professors, and TAs through Zoom or like through email.
For sure. Yeah, thank you. Before we wrap so going on with that, connecting, you guys should totally connect with our panelists. So if you guys, I know there were some questions that were unanswered, so yeah, feel free to reach out to any of these panelists. They have their LinkedIn, so if you don't have LinkedIn, you should try to get on that, especially for university, or Facebook or Instagram for LEAP as well. And you guys can also reach out, ask any questions, follow up, network with them if you guys like. So yeah, before we wrap things up, I just want to present one last external opportunity. If you were here in the first half, you might have heard it, but this weekend there will be a hackathon set by Set Hacks. And if you guys don't know what a hackathon is, it's basically like a 24-hour period, or it can be longer actually, where people kind of work together to solve problems, a lot of times using software. So if you're interested in software, or if you don't have any experience, like, they're totally open. So yeah, definitely go check it out on their website. It's a really good opportunity. I went to my first hackathon in my first year of university as well, and I learned a lot, and it's just a really good time. Even though it's going to be online, there'll be free workshops, and yeah, so go check it out. Thank you guys so much for attending, and thank you to our lovely UofT panelists for giving us so much insight. Again, go contact them if you guys have any more questions, and also subscribe to LEAP's newsletter. We'll also be sharing the recording of the video on our website with the summary notes. So if you missed anything or want to go over any of like the specific profs or bird courses, or the specifics they've mentioned, yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. These are our upcoming webinars if you guys are interested. Next week it'll be debunking misconceptions. I'm guessing you guys may not, like, if you're coming into UofT, you probably aren't interested in UBC, but if you're kind of looking out for other universities, if you're like going into grade 11 or something, maybe you'll be interested. So yeah, this will also be on our website. So yeah, feel free to start looking into those. Again, thank you to our week 2 UofT panelists again. And thank you guys all so much for joining us today. Yeah, take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks for
guys.
hosting.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.